SportsTalk. I'm Brian DeStoop alongside Joe Pransky here. Joe, we got a lot to talk about today. Even though the Red Sox are not winning many baseball games these days, we're still going to talk about them. On the agenda today, we're going to talk about Yoenis Cespedes. We're going to talk about how he's done so far, and I believe 8 games as a Red Sox. He had his first home run as a member of the Boston Red Sox yesterday. And, he's definitely someone that I think the Red Sox fans are going to warm up to. Obviously, a lot of people were excited when he came here at the deadline for Lester. A lot of fans were sad to see Lester go, but to have a guy with this much power in the lineup with Ortiz is something we haven't seen in a while. So we're going to talk about Cespedes. We're going to talk about our expectations for next year and going forward, but how he's done so far. Just because, the rest of the season, the Red Sox really aren't in contention for a playoff spot doesn't mean this guy's not going to be playing until the end of September. And I think we also can talk a little bit about, we're going to get to see some young guys play. We've already seen it. We'll talk about that. Also, potentially the improvement of Bogarts and, Bogarts, Jackie Bradley Jr. I mean, this is a big couple months for them to really, shore up their game, get some confidence, right? They're still playing against big league pitchers. And just, keep growing as players. We'll talk about the Red Sox, things that, hey, look, they're not necessarily in it for a playoff spot, but you don't have to tune out completely. You know what I mean? But the main story today is Patriots training camp. We were at Gillette the other day, got cut off a little bit at the end there, so we're going to talk about things we were kind of getting into that we didn't get the flow into. We'll talk about Jimmy Garoppolo versus Ryan Mallett, kind of, what we thought in that game, and then also who should be number 2 quarterback going forward. We're going to talk about a couple other camp battles, too, at the running back position and cornerback, and we're going to talk about the potential blockbuster Kevin Love trade that, it seems like it's going to go down in a couple weeks when Wiggins will be traded, but it's a handshake agreement, but there's some confusing details. We'll talk about that. But first, I want to dive into Patriots training camp, Joe. Yeah. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan Mallett. Obviously, we didn't see Tom Brady in that first game. Of the 2 quarterbacks, who were you more impressed with, and what did you think from both guys in their performances the other night?
I think that Garoppolo was wicked impressive, other than Mallett, who kept missing the wide receiver and not making any great plays. Mm-hmm. He was very inconsistent. And Garoppolo, his first NFL game he's ever attended too, so that's pretty different for him probably.
Garoppolo played a good game. Yeah. You're right. And I think with Mallett, I don't think you'd say consistently bad.
Yeah.
I don't think he really did anything to help the team move down the field at all. And I've honestly, when they first drafted him, coming out of Arkansas, I was high on him. I thought he was a good player in Arkansas. I liked what I saw. I thought he had a good arm in college. And you know what? He was a good college quarterback for Arkansas. But here, haven't been impressed with him every single preseason. You watch this guy. I think it's now his third preseason. I think he came here in 2011, I believe. So this is the 3rd preseason, I believe. And every time you watch him play, I don't see anything. I think he misses receivers. I had a buddy of mine go to the season ticket training camp thing, and he threw it to Tyler Law on the sideline. Guy's not even playing, and he's throwing at cornerbacks who aren't even on the team anymore. So, not really impressed with this guy. I don't think he's, I don't know if it's a confidence issue or what, but I don't feel like he doesn't go through his reads, and I don't think he makes the right decisions all the time, and you see it. And he scrambles, sometimes too, when he doesn't. I don't know if that's because he's freaking out, doesn't know who to throw to, and decides to take off, but he's definitely not a guy. He's not Michael Vick. He's not going to go running for touchdowns, running for, 1,000 yards at all.
I think he had a brace on his leg. I don't know if it was from an injury or for protection, but he had a brace, and he tried to slide, and just, the brace stopped him. It dug into the ground. He, bounced up, and it looked like it shook him up a little bit. So
yeah, I'm not sure on that brace. Zach, you want to look up for us about his knee brace? Anyway, Garoppolo though, right? He impressed me a lot. And Joe, if you don't mind, would you want to look up Garoppolo numbers quickly on there? I don't know if it's there in the summary, but I thought Garoppolo looked great. This guy stood in the pocket, made some deep throws down the field, the nice touchdown over the shoulder pass. The Tims, Joe's new favorite player over here, he hit him just over the shoulder. A beautiful NFL pass. Beautiful play. Also had another play, I think they were around the 45, 50-yard line. Chucked it down the field. Great throw. Ended up getting a pass interference call on that. Patriots got down to the goal line. They weren't able to capitalize there, but
6 complete passes, 13 attempts, 157 yards, and
touchdown.
1 touchdown.
Not bad numbers for not even a full half of football. I mean, Mallett,
Yeah.
I think, believe started the third quarter and Garoppolo came in. Stood in the pocket well. Like I said, he had a couple deep passes down the field. But in the NFL, when you throw it down the field, it's not always to necessarily get the touchdowns. You want to draw the pass interference calls. And in today's NFL, you're going to get them more than not because, the cornerbacks, the refs are going to throw those flags. Anytime the corner is just going to go up and touch the guy. So I think it's a smart play that, hey, look, I might have something down the field here. Garoppolo realized it right away, got the pass interference call, and it was a beautiful throw that could have been a touchdown. I mean, those are things that I was just very impressed with right away. I thought he stood in the pocket well. I thought he was a confident player. I thought he was a confident quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that, but, this is the guy's never been in an NFL game. Forget playing one. First, that was the preseason, but, it was encouraging, especially because some of the insiders and everything were saying he hadn't had the best start to camp. For him to come out like that. Joe, what else were you impressed with Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think that what you said is confidence. He was very confident up there, and he played the ball like he's played in the NFL for like years. That's very strange for a rookie.
It was nice to see.
Yeah.
And look, I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be what Aaron Rodgers was for the Packers, that when Brett Favre's done, in this case when Tom Brady's done, you have an NFL-ready starter right away. I don't know that. We've not even seen a full half of Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFL. We can't go saying this guy is going to be, the guy that is going to be the next Tim Brady. We've had plenty of guys that we've said that about. How about Kevin O'Connell? Exactly. Do you remember the name? No. Oh, wait, we drafted him, San Diego State. I don't even think he's in the NFL anymore. He spent some time with the Jets after here. We've had guys, Brian Hoyer, who are looking like actually a decent quarterback now in Cleveland. And who knows if he's going to beat Johnny Manziel. But that's another story for another city. And then you have Ryan Mallett, and that doesn't look like it's going to be the case.
Matt Castle,
who, ended up having a nice career, decent career with Minnesota. But the Chiefs era was nice. Yeah, not going to lie, good season here. But Garoppolo, I don't know if he's the guy. I think he's the closest thing we've had because Brady's at this point in his career where, when O'Connell came, it was 07, 08 or whatever, and Brady was in his prime, and now Brady's getting older. And I don't think Mallett's the guy. I think if Mallett, you've seen struggling consistency. He has trade value. Not sure why Belichick didn't want to trade him. And at the draft time, teams were like, oh, we'll give you a 2 or 3 for Ryan Mallett, but Belichick didn't trade him. I don't know why. It's not going to be the Bill Belichick bashing show of why he didn't do things. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he's the closest thing we've had. And obviously we have to see more from this guy. We're not exactly sure yet on what he's going to develop because playing good in a preseason game is different than when you're going up against a first-string defense, all of a sudden in the NFL in a regular season game. Totally different environment, and it's a totally different thing. But I liked what I saw from him. And this is a guy at San Diego State, Joe, that had a lot of success. Now, do you take that Division II numbers where it's not the biggest schools, you're not playing, you're in a lower division. You're not playing with the big boys, you're not in bowl games, not anything. Yeah, Zach, what's up?
Ben Roethlisberger.
You think so? Think he'd be that? I hope so. We all hope
He's
so.
a guy who came from a small school, no one knew what the heck he could do. There you go.
Tony Romo, same thing. Joe Flacco, Delaware. I mean, there are guys in recent history who have had success.
Steve McNair.
Yeah. Steve McNair is another guy that had a lot of success in the NFL.
Alcorn State.
There is guys, and if you go back and look, there's a ton. There's a ton. There's guys out there who did not come from big colleges. Joe, exactly saying there's guys, Eastern Illinois, Tony Romo went to that school. Do you take those big numbers, even though...
Hopefully he's better than Romo.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, Romo's a Pro Bowler, and as long as Romo could be clutch in the fourth quarter, he might have some playoff wins more than just one. But, Joe, do you take that whole Division II thing with a grain of salt, or do you look, Kyle's thrown 50 touchdowns, and look, the numbers are numbers, but you can tell with the eyeball test, and guys liked him. What do you think about Garoppolo and the fact that he came from that school, but you know what? He still has talent, even though it's not against Michigan or whatever.
I don't think schools should really matter. He plays football. He gets touchdowns. He has the potential of being an NFL player. So I think that colleges shouldn't. He's a great player.
There's definitely guys who slip under the radar and go to those schools. I mean, Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl. He's a legitimate starter in this league. I know he's not. He might be a little overrated, but he's a starter. He's won a Super Bowl. Delaware.
Yeah.
Not Georgia. There's plenty of quarterbacks who have went to Georgia, Florida, Alabama. How about, USC? Plenty of those guys. How about John Parker Wilson went to Alabama, right? You don't even know the guy. Good starter. Killed to be in Joe Flacco's shoes. They played around the same time. Killed to be in those shoes. Chris Leak won a national championship at Florida, but not an NFL quarterback. There are guys out there that, go to the big schools and absolutely are nothing. And then there are guys that go to these schools like Mr. Garoppolo here that can end up being legitimate starters. And I think that if Bill Belichick thinks a guy has talent, he's not going to spend a second-round pick on it for a quarterback that when you have Tom Brady. He's not going to do it. So I think Belichick has faith in this guy. But, Joe, it's still a quarterback battle out there. And what do you think? Do you think there's a legit chance that if Garoppolo plays like this for the rest of the preseason and in camp shores up a little bit more, that he could end up beating out Ryan Mallett for that second QB job? Or they're going to kind of say, look, they're going to keep him kind of under wraps, third-string quarterback for this year, let him play in the preseason, get his feet wet a little bit, NFL football, but Mallett's the guy if Brady gets hurt because he's been around longer. What do you think about that? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that Garoppolo's going to take the second spot.
Really?
Yeah, because Mallett's not proving himself at all. He seems like he hasn't been here for long, and Garoppolo seems like he's been here for long, so I think that he's going to take the spot.
I think it's going to be Mallett. In my opinion, if Garoppolo plays like this going forward, I want Garoppolo to be the number 2 quarterback because I feel like, there's more upside of the guy. You know what I mean? But I feel like Mallett's going to win it. I feel like, he's had more experience, and I think that has something in a Bill Belichick run team. A guy who's been here, knows the offense more. I think that's what Mallett is. I think Mallett will have the number 2 quarterback job. Hopefully, we're not talking about, having to start one of these guys. You don't want Brady, but, and look, last year too, right? You had the guy, Tim Tebow, who's on the roster, who, I know it's Tim Tebow, I know, he's not, a lot of controversy on an NFL quarterback, but a guy who won a playoff game, right, started, a good amount, 16 regular season games over 2 years, who didn't win the job over Mallett. So I think that it's for Belichick. It's about guys who have been in the system and know the offense, especially at the quarterback position, and I think that's what's going to happen. I believe Mallett's going to be number 2 quarterback. Was that you had something to say back there? No? Oh, I thought you had something to add. But, all right, stick on the Patriots training camp. Remember Roy Finch, the guy who had the fumble the other night in the preseason game?
Yeah. Okay.
We got Brandon Bolden. Brandon Bolden. He's been here for a couple of years. He's started a couple of games. I think he's been around here since about 2011. Now, there's 3 guys for the running back position that are locks, in my opinion. You got James White, the guy we just drafted from Wisconsin, the guy I think that has some upside, could legitimately get, carries for this team this year. Shane Vereen, that I think this is a big year for him. It's contract year. If he's going to be that utility running back, catching out of the backfield, running on third down, whatever, fantasy owner's dream, a Danny Woodhead, if you will, big year for him. He's going to stay healthy. And Ridley, another big year for him. I think those guys are on the team. Hopefully Ridley doesn't fumble the ball every down. Obviously sarcasm there. But those guys are going to be making it. So Bolden and Finch, I think, are fighting for a spot. Okay? This is my take on it, and I'll ask you in a minute. But Bolden's been here, decent running back, had experience in the offense. I think Finch has an upside. Looks fast. No, had a couple mistakes the other night. Had some pop to him, I realized. Had a little speed. I was a play where he, cut in, cut out. Just good. I don't know how to put it, but there was something like, raw talent in there. Like, he was fast, and you can't teach speed. I think he had something. Obviously, he's a little inexperienced, fumbled, but it's your 4th running back we're talking about. I think Bolden's going to be on the street. I think Bolden's been here. I know I was just saying with the quarterback position, it's being in the offense. This isn't your number 2 quarterback here. We're talking about your number 4 running back, guy who's probably never going to see the field. I know Bolden's been here. Not the fastest guy. Got into a little bit of trouble over the years. I think Bolden's cut. I think they're going to go with a younger player. If Finch does not screw up mightily for the rest of camp, he doesn't have another couple incidents like that, I think he's on the team. But that's just my opinion. What do you think on this?
If Finch comes on the team and he still has the handling ball issue, we're going to have 2 Ridleys, and I don't know how I feel about that because they can't hold onto the ball. and there'll be tons of turnovers and not turnovers. You know what I mean? No. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fumbles.
Yeah, fumbles.
Turnovers.
That word.
I think that word. I just think that Bolden's, I know he's been here, right? I know he's had a couple of nice games here over the last couple of years when Ridley or whoever's been hurt. But I just don't see him making the team for a fourth running back spot. I think he'll get picked up by somebody else. But I think when you have a guy who has pop like that, they're gonna take a chance on him. And I think, look, the guy's not gonna see that light of day anyway. This is really gonna be Ridley's big year to see, can he be the feature back? That's the biggest thing for me this year. This is Ridley's big year. Can he be a consistent feature back? We saw he could rush for 1,000 yards. We know he has talent. We know he can be, a legitimate starting running back in this league for the next 3 or 4 years. But he can't hold on the ball. Yeah. There's no way Belichick's going to trust this guy, and there's no way his teammates are going to trust him. Nothing. Yeah, I thought you were going to Mike. Ridley. For Vereen, I think that this guy, as long as he stays healthy, he'll be on the field a lot. White, good running back from Wisconsin. I think, a lot of upside for him in the draft. He's going to get some downs. I just don't see Bolden or Finch really playing a lot, so I think they're going to go with the more quick guy. The final camp thing I want to get to before we move on to Cespedes is Kyle Arrington. Obviously, Patriots added the best cornerback in football and a great number 2, Revis and then Browner. However, it makes everybody else going to slip down. Kyle Arrington's been a legitimate third slot cornerback for this year, the past couple of years. But there's questions that he might get buried. How big of a camp is this for Kyle Arrington? To prove himself that he still deserves to be getting legitimate reps on the field, still trusting as a slot corner. What do you think of Arrington? How big of a camp preseason is this for him?
I think it's big, as what you just said, because I don't really know much about it. But the thing I realized last year, going back to last year, is that when there was a ball going deep and he was covering the guy, he never turned around to look at the ball.
That was like everybody on the Patriots corners. You're right.
Yeah, so I think that if you have a guy that can turn around and intercept the ball and keep pressure on the wide receiver, I think you would go with that guy instead of Arrington, who doesn't really. He just follows the guy.
This is absolutely a big camp for this guy, Arrington. I think he'll end up. Look, you got Dennard, and I think obviously I think Dennard. I think is a guy that I know he's been in some trouble, but he's got a lot of talent, in my opinion. I think he'll be there going forward. But Logan Ryan too, man. I mean, there's a lot of guys I think fighting for around the same position, and I think Logan Ryan, Alphonso Dennard, they're gonna end up beating Kyle Arrington. I just feel like I just don't think he'll end up being, with these additions, I don't think his value is as much as a guy like Dennard, who was our number 2 cornerback last year.
Well, I think for the first 4 games, he's going to play an important role.
Arrington? Well, yeah, because you got Browner suspended. But the question, and you know what, Zach, if he proves himself during then, right, he can get a spot on it. You can legitimate play. But when you add 2 guys like that, someone's got to, minutes, reps, they got to get cut. You know what I mean?
Well, at least if he plays well those first 4 games and there's no future for him here after the season for whatever reason, he can showcase himself to other teams that he can still play.
Right. I think he's not a bad slot corner. I think he's not a bad 3 or 4. He's not a 1 or 2. It's pretty obvious. But I think Dennard is going to thrive with having these guys around him, to be quite honest. Guy was number 2 corner. And, now you got a guy like Revis. You got Browner. Dennard, I think, he was your number 2 guy last year. I think he's a guy a lot of this team likes. Clearly, he's been in some legal trouble. I understand that, but he's still here. Belichick, this upside on this guy, and I feel that with a lesser role for him, he's going to thrive because we saw when Aqib Talib was here, right? He made everybody around him better. You got 2 guys, you got the best, and then another great 2. Dennard's going to thrive. He's going to pop up in some moments. I think he's really going to be a great 3 or 4 this year on this team. I think Logan Ryan's a younger, a little bit more skilled player than Kyle Arrington. I just think he's going to end up being the odd man out. Still, let's see if he can prove us wrong, because this is a good situation for the Patriots that we're talking about, what are we going to do with corners, when before, we have no one to play. Now that we're talking about who's the odd man out, it's a good situation here. Would you agree with that, Zach? C. All right.
I do agree with you. The secondary hasn't looked this good on paper in years.
And the fact that we're having a discussion on who's the odd man out, well, before we were going to be like, who's playing, especially when to keep leaving the handy.
What guy are we going to find off the street to play this week?
Right, exactly. So it's been a great turnaround, the fact we're having this conversation. It makes me very, very happy. All right, Joe, we have 10 minutes left in the show. Cespedes, before we get to opinions, Joe, why don't you read down the numbers for this guy so far in his first 8 games as Boston Red Sox?
Okay, I just need to find it again. Okay, he's played 8 games. He has 34 at-bats. He has 6 runs, 9 hits, 1 double, 1 triple, 2, 3, 8. 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, and his average is .265.
All right. So, I know it's only 8 games, the sample number. And
It's early.
it's early for him, but hey, well, I think going forward, this guy, if he's hitting 270 around, he's hitting what? He's hitting 265 right now. If he's hitting, 270 for this team consistently, and knocks about 30 home runs, 27, 30 next season, I'm good with it. I like Cespedes so far. I know, it's only 8 games or whatever, but I like the fact that you just have another guy who's not Napoli protecting Ortiz. Because Napoli's not as much of a threat as a guy like Cespedes is. You know what I mean? And I feel like if this Red Sox team can get legitimate pitching next year, and Pedroia, wakes up and is a little more like Pedroia, Bogarts takes a step forward, Jackie Bradley Jr. does, you got Craig, you got Victorino, playing in some role next year, and they get maybe one more bat with pitching. This is a team that I feel better with because you have outfield, you have hitting in the outfield, and that's a guy with Cespedes that's anchoring it, and he protects Ortiz. I still think Ortiz has a couple of years of really good baseball left. He's having a great year this year.
You know what I just noticed?
What?
Everybody but Pedroia, Ortiz, Bogarts, and Bradley Jr. have 100+ games, and everybody else is down in like low 90s.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, and not even Bogarts and Bradley Jr. have played as many games as Pedroia and Ortiz.
Yeah.
I just found that as an interesting fact.
Yeah, it's a good one, buddy. But
I just wanted to also bring up something. Josh Beckett's available too at the end of the year.
Yeah, I read something that's really funny. That he might retire. He's considering retirement. It's another Bleacher Report thing, which we'll get to another Bleacher Report rumor. I've been reading up on these Bleacher Report rumors. I gotta stop. But Josh Beckett might be retiring. So that's a funny one, Zach. Even though he threw a no hitter this year. But if they can add pitching with these guys, I think it's gonna lead to maybe a playoff berth or something. I don't know, but they have more talent now. And if for all your conspiracy theories out there, well, maybe they did this, they had a handshake agreement behind closed doors and Lester would be back. I'm not buying it. I know Zach, you're buying it because they wanted a hitter, but I'm not buying it.
Conspiracy theory, baby. Conspiracy theory.
But then again, this is the man who got the LeBron James theory right. So I don't know what I should think about this guy because he seems like
Still waiting for that steak dinner.
I know. We'll be getting to something. All right. I will be paying you back because you called that. Don't worry. I haven't forgotten about you. I just need some time and some money. But anyway, so.
Looks like it's time for a job.
Maybe. Anyway, back to my topic here. I think that you look at this outfield, you look at the potential power coming through, you look at the pitching. Maybe next year it's legit, potentially. Cespedes is going to be the anchor of it.
Yeah.
I know the move. Maybe we decided to keep Lester, but. Do you think Cespedes going forward is going to be a guy who's going to hit 270, driving out maybe 9,500 runs and hit maybe 27 to 30 home runs?
I think that he's still in his little awkward spot with us because he was the biggest guy in Oakland in a while. So I think that in a little bit, next month, probably in September, he's gonna be more comfortable, and then next year he's going to be in spring training is going to get even more comfortable and become that player that we wanted him to become when we got him. So.
Right. I mean, I think that it's not obviously Cespedes so far hasn't been what you thought about when Manning went to to LA that was crazy. I mean, he went off on a tear, but this isn't a contending team, so it's a little different. The move is.
Yeah, the juice out in LA might have been a little better.
It might have been. It definitely was. A little bit, something in there. I don't know why. It was a little stronger because that was insane. But anyway, it's not that because this team's not in contention. You know what I mean? It's different for Cespedes coming to a team that's going to be bottom of the AL East. You know, they're at the cellar. You know what I mean?
Do you know that the only players that are above 300 right now with batting average is the pitchers?
Yeah. That's another problem with this team is we don't have anybody hitting over 300. And Cespedes is not the answer to that. If you want a guy that's going to hit 300, you're on the wrong guy. You're looking for a guy with power. But I know we're running a little short on time. But, Joe, Cespedes so far, like, dislike, what are your feelings on it?
I like him. It's early. He already hit a home run. He has 5 RBIs in 8 games, so that's pretty interesting. So he's going to be a good player.
All right, so I got a question for you here. Kevin Love. Rumor handshake agreement that we got Wiggins, Bennett going to Minnesota, Love going to Cleveland. There's also a Bleacher Report thing that says that Thaddeus Young, Philly's going to maybe jump in this thing as a 3-team. Thaddeus Young's going to go to Minnesota. Bennett's going to Philly, and Wiggins is still going to Minnesota with Love going to Cleveland. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
My thoughts are if that's the actual trade that's happening with Philly involved, Minnesota made out great in that deal. They know that at this point they're pretty sure they can't sign Kevin Love. You get the number 1 pick this year. Thaddeus Young is maybe 3-4 years in the league.
He's been around for a little while now. Maybe 4 or 5.
Maybe it is 4 or 5. But heck of a player. I mean, that's 2 solid young players. You have no idea what Wiggins is going to be yet, but I think that's a good trade that makes it a better trade for Minnesota, giving up the talent that they're giving. Obviously, they're giving up a great player. You know, I think Joe's got some numbers on him, but, you know, Minnesota is, if this is the deal they've put together, Bennett might still have a future, but was definitely not the player they thought he was year 1.
Yeah.
So it's a low risk, high reward, I think, for Minnesota.
Absolutely. Because look what you build, right? Ricky Rubio, Andrew Wiggins, Derek Williams, another really talented young player, Thaddeus Young. Good for you. If Wiggins is a guy who 2 or 3 years, you lock up Derek Williams. He seems like he's getting better and better. Lock that guy up. Lock Rubio up. Have Thaddeus Young. Lock them all up and wait till Wiggins develops. That could potentially be a team who's fighting for an 8 spot in 2 years. I don't know. And it's a start. It definitely is a start.
You know who Minnesota actually reminds me of right now? If it goes down like this, next year, not this year, next year, they will be like a young Cleveland.
Yeah.
Prior to this LeBron James thing.
Right. Joe, want to read those numbers on Kevin Love?
Kevin Love has 26.1 point per game, 12.5
rebounds
per game, 0.5 blocks per game, 0.45 field goals percentage, and for free throw, yeah, 82%.
All right, so you're looking at a big man right here, obviously, with the numbers, and you can tell the double-double guy, and he's one of the best in the league, and he's going to play with LeBron. In my opinion, D-Wade wasn't what he was when LeBron got him with, or really besides that first year. I think this could be the most talented player, not the most talented, the most helpful guy that Kevin Love is going to have to play with going forward.
Helpful is a good choice of words, not talented, helpful.
Because he's going to fit his skill set in terms of, look, fast break, Kevin Love can run the floor, and he can go to the rim, and he gets boards. But he also can play the pick and pop, pick and roll game with LeBron and Kyrie. He can shoot the lights out. He's a little bit different than Chris Bosh. I think he helps him better than Chris Bosh. Kevin Love's not going to average 26 a game now, but I still think he's going to be averaging about 20, and I think he's going to start getting rebounds. I love it for Cleveland. Watch out. With Kevin Love now, I'm sold they're the favorite for the NBA championship. And I know it's not official yet, and the league maybe can veto it like a Chris Paul. I don't see it. Kevin Love's going to be in Cleveland, and it's going to be great. And I think that guy is just going to make – he's the most helpful player LeBron's ever played with.
There's no way this trade's getting vetoed. It's a totally different situation. The league has no control of the team. Back when the Chris Paul deal got squashed, they owned the New Orleans Hornets.
I got a little thing article I'll show you later then about that. I saw something. Just saying. Anyway, guys, end up half hour already over. We're gonna wrap this show up. We gotta wrap the show up. So next week on Sports Talk, we'll talk about the second Patriots preseason game. We'll talk about training camp going forward, and sooner or later, we're gonna be talking about hockey training camp. So we'll talk about that going forward too. Keep that in back of your mind in any NBA offseason developments. or any Bruins if this had to do anything. For Joe Pransky, I'm Brian DeStoop, Zach Gorman, Matt DeStoop behind the scenes, and we'll see you next time.